Everyone, it's Patty with Politically Pump, and you're watching The Brief, where we take a step back from the chaos of the headlines and try to understand what's actually happening and why it matters. So let's get into it. So recently, Donald Trump fired Kristi Noem. Well, removed her as head of DHS and tapped Senator Markwayne Mullin to run the department. You might not know his name yet, but if he's confirmed, you are absolutely going to feel his decisions in your actual everyday life. This isn't just swapping one Republican for another. This is about who gets the keys to one of the most powerful domestic security machines that we have in this country. In the exact moment we're at, with a war abroad and tensions rising at home, it could get interesting. So, who is Markwayne Mullin? Let's start with the basics. Markwayne Mullin is a Republican senator from Oklahoma. Before the Senate, he spent years in the House, and before politics, he built a small business empire, Mullin Plumbing, and several related companies, running as the businessman, not a politician type. He's also a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and one of the only tribal citizens to serve in the U.S. Senate. That's a big deal symbolically, especially given the history of this country with Native nations. But once he got to Washington, he did what a lot of "I'm not a politician" guys do. He settled in. He broke his own self imposed term limits pledge and stayed. He carved out a reputation as a loyal conservative vote and a bit of a culture war brawler, someone who leans into combative hearing moments and the tough guy brand. And through all of that, he positions himself firmly in Trump's camp, backing him through both impeachments and aligning closely with Trump's agenda. So, why him and why now? Trump has been very clear about the image he wants here. He's selling Mullin as the guy who will secure the border, crack down on migrant crime, and make America safe again. Translation? He wanted a Homeland Security chief who is an immigration hardliner and a loyalist. Mullin has consistently backed policies that ramp up border enforcement, more wall, more agents, more detentions. He's praised ICE and taken the side of aggressive enforcement over reform. And let's remember the context here. Kristi Noem is out after a messy, controversial tenure that included hardline immigration moves and high-profile scandals. Instead of using that as a chance to reset the tone at DHS, Trump basically swapped in another hardliner, just with a different resume and a smoother path in the Senate. So this isn't a course correction, it's a double down. So if you're now thinking, okay, but DHS feels far away from my life, let's fix that. DHS oversees Customs and Border Protection and ICE, or Immigration Customs Enforcement. That means border crossings, asylum processing, immigration raids, detention centers, and deportations. If you care about how immigrants, refugees, and mixed status families are treated in this country, DHS is ground zero. It also includes TSA, that lovely experience that we all have at the airport, and a massive chunk of the federal government's domestic counterterrorism work. That's where labels like domestic violent extremist and national security threat live. And those labels can shape how protesters, Muslim communities, Black activists, and others get monitored or targeted. On top of that, DHS plays a big role in disaster response and critical infrastructure through FEMA. When a hurricane hits, when wildfires rip through a town, when a chemical plant leaks, DHS is part of how quickly help shows up and gets prioritized. So, no, this is not some abstract cabinet trivia. This touches who gets searched, who gets raided, who gets watched, and who gets help. Given all of that information, here are the questions I think we should be asking as Mullin heads towards his confirmation. First, on immigration, Is he going to push for more raids, more family detention, longer holds for kids, and even broader powers for ICE? His record points towards more enforcement, not less. That's not just the border, that's workplaces, neighborhoods, schools, communities all over our country. Second, protests and extremism. How will he use the tools DHS has to track and label domestic threats? Civil liberties groups have been warning for years that vague extremism labels end up hitting dissent and marginalized communities the hardest. Under a war footing, it gets even easier to justify surveillance and crackdowns in the name of security. Third, tribal and border communities. As a Cherokee citizen, Mullin knows what it means for the federal government to wield power badly over native land. The question is, will he use his position to protect those communities from overreach? Or will he side completely with the harshest enforcement wing of his party? And fourth, accountability inside of DHS itself. DHS already has a spotty record of internal oversight, from civil rights complaints, use of force issues, and transparency problems. Will he strengthen the parts of the department that investigate abuse and guard privacy? Or will he get sidelined even more? All of this would matter in a normal moment, but we're not living in a normal moment. The US is, in fact, at war with Iran. Emotions are high. Nationalism is running hot. And both the government and the media are talking more and more in terms of enemies and threats. This is the exact kind of environment where security agencies grow in power, often quietly, and more often than not, permanently. So when you combine that with a president who loves to use fear about migrants, crime, and protest as political fuel, giving a loyal hardliner the reins at DHS is not a neutral move. It shapes who gets treated as dangerous, whose communities get flooded with armed agents, and whose grief and dissent are seen as security problems instead of a democratic right. So, from a normal neighborly stance and a justice perspective, this isn't just about whether Mullin seems like a nice guy or whether he throws around Christian language. It's about how he will use one of the biggest tools of state power to either protect or harm our most vulnerable neighbors. So, as Markwayne Mullin heads into his confirmation hearings, the question isn't just, is he qualified on paper? The question is, do we trust him with some of the broadest powers the federal government has over our daily lives and over the lives of people this country already treats as disposable? If there's something specific in Mullin's record that you want me to pull on, from his immigration votes, protests, policing, tribal issues, drop it in the comments or send it my way. I'll keep digging and keep breaking this down in plain English so you don't have to be a policy nerd like me to understand what the hell is going on. As always, thanks for listening. You can find more over on my Substack. There's a link in the show notes. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.